Hello, my beautiful family. You want to learn about less preservatives in your food? You want to turn around and find out what more flavor tastes like? Today we're going to be making homemade ghee, removing 95% of the preservatives that are in it. Now I will tell you, my ghee is not canned. It is not set on my shelf. I store mine in my refrigerator, and it has been known to last up to even a year. I usually don't generally keep it that long because I use this every day. So without further ado, let's go make some homemade ghee. I'm going to start out with a nice heavy pan. I like using the enamel cast iron. This actually works really good, and in the end of it you'll have some particles, milk solids in the bottom. I usually let them soak for a bit, and then if it gets too bad I will add baking soda, coarse salt, and a little bit of water. We start out with completely unsalted butter. The reason for the unsalted is this cooks down, the salt would tend to enhance, so you don't want it really salty. So I use the unsalted butter. It doesn't matter what kind you use. Honestly, your yield will kind of depend on this, because some of these have more water than others, and it varies. So all I use is just 1 pound. I am going with 4 pounds today, but it's 1 pound of butter like this and unsalted, and all I do is I take my sticks out of the packages and then I'll put them in my pot. In the meantime, while you're cooking this down, and I will show you what each step is, this is 3-step process. I will take my jars. Now, I do not want my jars wet, no water whatsoever. We're removing the water from our butter to make our ghee, so I don't want the inside of my jars wet. I take a bottom line, and again, you'll see my cloth in here so that my jars are not hitting the element. And I will heat my jars up and get them to where they're warm, because this is going to be very hot, and you don't want to add that to a cold jar. What is ghee, you may ask? Ghee is actually rendered down butter to clarified butter, 100% clarified butter. It is really good for your system. Vitamins A, D, K, E. It's really easy to digest, much easier to digest. This is great for anybody who has health issues such as diabetes. The sugars, everything will be cooked out of this, leaving you nothing but pure, raw fat. And it's a good type of fat. It is saturated fat, but it's a dissolvable fat that actually is so much healthier for you than regular butter or margarines. I happen to like ghee. I love that nutty flavor in the end, and we'll go ahead and begin. I'm just going to go ahead now and take these 4 pounds of butter, add this to my pot, and I will be right back. Okay, so this is what 8 pounds of butter looks like. You don't have to cut it up. You can if you want to. I just put them in whole. And at this point, I'm going to turn on my heat to about a medium. I usually generally on my electric one, I'll put it on 4. And what I'm going to do at this point, the 3 stages I talked about, there is a water level, there is a milk level, and then there becomes the solids running to the bottom, leaving you nothing but pure clarified butter. So I will take you through each step as we go along, and see you back in a few. As this starts to melt down, it's okay to start stirring it up every now and then, but once it gets to a point that this is completely melted, you want to stop stirring. Some of the equipment that you'll want to consider using, I clean my rims again with the vinegar because it helps cut the grease. Now, this is my tea towel. It looks filthy, y'all. It's really not. It's clean. I've used this thing for so many things, even straining oil to make it last longer, back when I was using a lot of oil. But this is clean. This is a tea towel. You can go out and get some cheesecloth. You'll need this to strain out the milk solids, because you want the most purest, cleanest looking clarified butter or your ghee. You don't want to add any particles to this. So you can use an old tea cloth, which I did. I cut this one up just for purposes like this, because I'm really not using it for much of anything else. Or you can get the cheesecloth. To me, this goes a long way because it is washable. Even if it does stain, it's washable, and I could keep continually using it. Where cheesecloth, I really can't. It's a one-time use and throw away. And I like to try to save my money as much as possible. Another good thing you can use, I'm using a Pyrex glass measuring cup so that I can pour these into my jars. You will need some canning lids. Now on this one, it's not, you don't need any specifics. With the canning lids here, you can reuse your old lids for this. Like I said, you're not canning this, and I'm not teaching to store on your shelf. It's going in your refrigerator. These will seal, but it's okay to use old lids or lids that you don't trust, and you'll need some canning rings. The jars that I have are about 8-ounce jars. So we're going to see, I should get about 4 or 5 of those jars of this ghee. We'll see what happens. Okay, we have reached the point where all our butter is melted, and you will see that foam on the top of it. That foam is actually your milk. Some of these you're going to find you won't have as much, some you will. This is where you start finding out more ingredients and how things were done in your stores or in the factories and what your end product is. This one here has a lot of foam, so that means there's a lot of milk in here. So we're going to bring it to a boil at this point, and you're going to keep it to a boil all the way through. The first step on this will be the water evaporating, and I will show you what that looks like. Okay, we are at our first boil. Notice I did not skim off this foam on it. Don't stir it, don't skim this off yet. Eventually this will pull apart and the particles will sink to the bottom. You don't really want to mess with it too much at this point because you want all of this to cook through. This is where we're at the water point. The water will start to evaporate, and the next stage will be the milk solids being removed and then eventually drop to the bottom. And when it gets to this point, I will show you what that looks like and see if we can hear the different stages. Again, this is the water part being evaporated. You will see now as it starts to break down how that foam is separating like I talked about earlier. It will continue to separate, and there will become a point that if there's any left, we will take and gently scrape the sides of it to remove the foam sections of this. This happens fairly quickly, and usually you can make ghee within about 10 minutes, so please do not step away from this pot. You do not want it to burn, or it will not even taste good. You just want to keep your eye on this and watch it as it goes down. And so we are just about ready to reach our second stage where the milk solids are going to start being rendered down and disappearing and evaporating. You can see the changing. This is still part of the water part of it, but you'll start seeing the bubbles changing, and you can start hearing the different sounds of each level too. We are now reaching to the point of the milk solids where your bubble starts getting more defined. You start hearing a slight crackling type of noises. You will notice the changes as it goes through each stage. At this point is where the milks will start being evaporated. The next stage will be your pure butter fat, and that's when you're really going to have to watch it because the solids will stop dropping to the bottom of your pot. Excuse me. And I will show you what this looks like again at the point of even stopping it. And the next stage is when I'll start skimming off some of this fat. Okay, we are getting close to nothing but the pure clarified butter. So I'm going to go ahead at this point and take a small strainer, just this little bitty thing right here, and just gently take across my edges, very gently skimming off that top, and then putting it over in a separate dish. Now you can, if you want to, you can reserve that and put that on toast. It'll have somewhat of a nutty flavor to it. So I've done that before. I don't do it much these days, but I've done it before. And that's what you're going to start seeing here, where it starts getting down to the oil. It'll become more see-through clear, where you won't have, you can start seeing the water all disappearing. You can see the milk start disappearing to where you get nothing but this oil coming down to it. I'm going to go ahead and finish skimming this off, and I will come back to you in just a moment. Okay, you can pretty much see the brownish coloring at the bottom from here. I now turn this off, and you can see it looks like basically nothing but oil popping around. You have now reached the clarified stage of your ghee, and you have made ghee. I'm going to go ahead and finish skimming this off with the rest of it, and now I'm going to strain this. You will see at the bottom of my pan, and this will happen to you. That's why I told you how to be able to get this off your pan. But you will get that toasted look at the bottom. You do not want this to burn. You don't want to get no further than this. This is actually the milk solids that had dropped to the bottom, leaving you nothing but pure clarified butter. You want it nice and golden. You don't want it smelling like burn or nothing like that. You avoid that point. You want to get to this golden part. Okay, y'all, we are back, and this is the golden color of pure ghee at this point. I'm going to take this and start filling up our jars, and I'll show you how to do this. I will take a clean, sterile jar, nice and hot. Make sure that its inside is dry. Another point I needed to make was when you use your cheesecloth or your tea cloth, do not wet it. You don't want to put moisture back into this. You just want this pure butter. I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch to the top and just fill up my jar. And this is very hot, y'all, so be careful. Take my paper towel, clean my edges. So that my seals will stick to it. Put my top on the top of it. And again, just like the canning, you just want this finger tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill up the rest of my jars, and I shall be right back. And that's it. These will look like beautiful jars of honey, crystal clear, as a clear type of oil base, not completely see-through, but you see that beautiful golden color. We actually got 6 full 8-ounce jars and one about 3/4 full. And since they're being refrigerated, I'm not worried about that too much. I will end up having to use that one first. But these now just sit here. They will solidify. I will show you what it looks like afterwards. These will sit here, and some of them, more than likely, as they cool, they will start, you'll start hearing the pops to the jars. Once they're cool, I usually give it about 24 hours. And then I will put them in my fridge and use them as I go along. This is one of my finished jars. I was down to 1 jar, so I really needed to make some more. But it's solidified. It's easy to use. A little bit goes a long way. This has got a very nice, pleasant flavor to it, somewhat nutty flavor. You can use this. I use this to fry my eggs with. I use this for everything. You can saute, you can bake with this stuff. It's got an extremely high heat point, up to about 400 degrees. This stuff is actually really amazing. Once I started making this, I couldn't stop, because I like how it doesn't make me feel weighed down or nothing. It's so easy to digest. So I'm hoping this helped you, and I'm hoping that you enjoy this as much as I do. Until next time, I am working on another video on pure lemon pepper seasoning without all the preservatives in it. The more that I dehydrate, the better it is, and I will give you a point where you can stock it and continually make your own. Until next time, much love, God bless, from Parton's Heritage Homestead.